Welcome back to the Body Composition Coach podcast, and I've got an interesting one for you today because you remember on the last episode I broke down the AI recommendations to get in shape, right? Lose fat, build muscle, that kind of thing. So I broke those recommendations down, went through what I thought was good advice, what I thought maybe wasn't such good advice, and then what I would do differently, or maybe just give a bit of a pointer as to what I would do differently. But today I thought I could elaborate on that a little bit. And what I'm going to do for you today is actually break down, start to finish, what I would do with a client when it comes to them. And I'll explain this client to you anyway in a second. But let's say they're a female, they're maybe holding too much body fat and not enough muscle, not particularly like overweight, but not in the shape that they want to be in. You know, they need to drop body fat, build muscle, and they need to kind of do this over a longer period of time, which most people do. So I'll run that through for you, and I'll show you exactly what I would do. Before I do that, as always, leave me that 5-star review, leave me a comment, let me know what you're thinking of these podcasts. And as always, if you want to work with me, I will stick a link in the show notes so you can see what I do, how I do it, and how exactly I might be able to help you. But what you're going to take from this episode today anyway is exactly what I like to do with clients. So you get a really good understanding today as to how I work and how I do things and that kind of thing. So I suppose the open to this is to explain to you exactly what that client is, who that client is, what they do, what they look like, that kind of thing. So generally when women come to me for help, what they are in a position of is they've probably been dieting for a while. Or they've been on and off of diets for a long time. They have been training, but potentially not really built the muscle mass that they were hoping for. And that's usually because they've been dieting for too long. Potentially, like they've got the idea of that they need to eat more protein. They've got the idea that they need to lift. But these things at the minute are probably a bit ineffective. Let's say potentially they're 65, 70 kg or even 60 kg. And then they know how to lose a few kilos. But even when they do, they don't generally tend to look that different, and then they start to gain a few kilos back, and then they diet again, and they get stuck in that kind of dieting loop. That's generally where people are, not like 100 kilos plus needing to lose 20, 30, 40 kilos, but in that like frustrating zone. So I want to help you, anyone who is in that zone. I want to help you and just show you what I would do and talk you through it. So to kind of lay this out for you really honestly, you're probably talking about 5 different phases that you need to work through. And this is where I think people get it wrong. They think, I just need to do like this dieting phase. I just need to like eat more protein and be in a calorie deficit, and I'm going to get the result I want. If this was me and I wanted to achieve a top level result for my client, which I do regularly, I would take them through about 5 phases. And I'll be completely straight with you from the start. For most people, this is probably an 18-month journey. Genuinely, it's not for everybody. Some people might do it in 12 months. Some people might do it somewhere in between. But if you are talking about real muscle definition, some real muscle tone going on, sustaining a lower body fat, sustaining a higher muscle mass, you're probably talking about 18 months. And that's just me being really straight with you. And not many coaches will tell you that, because what they will likely want to do is sell you like an 8-week challenge or a 12-week challenge or something like that. And look, if you're looking on the internet and you're seeing these 12-week transformations and you're thinking, right, that's all I need, you're going to find out the hard way. And maybe you already have found out the hard way. So I'm just going to tell you the truth here. I'm going to tell you exactly what this looks like, exactly what the stages that you might need to go through are, and just give you some real accuracy with these timelines. So let's get into phase 1. So the phase 1 that I would start with, or the first thing I would start with, is always a priming phase. I always start with a priming phase with a client. Now, this can be anything from like a minimum of 4 weeks right through to almost 12 weeks potentially. And it really depends on where that client's coming in. And there's a few different things that we're looking at in that initial priming phase. So firstly, above everything else is adherence. So when I set out the strategy for the client, do they actually follow it? Do they stick to it? Are they tracking their data? And I mean nutrition data, I mean training data. Are they doing it in the week and on the weekends? Are they able to actually follow a plan? Are they able to communicate effectively with me? Are they able to check in on time? Are they able to ask good questions? Like all of these things that maybe we don't think about with a coaching journey, but are you actually in a position where you are very coachable right now. And that doesn't mean that if you're not, then it's not right for you. It just means that I might need to spend some more time helping you with being more coachable, because over the next 18 months, that's going to be really, really important, right? I'm going to need to have those hard conversations with you, have those, that communication, that relationship with you that's actually going to get you to where you want to get to. So adherence and communication and being coachable is kind of the first thing that we'll do in a priming phase. The second thing that we'll do is look at, I suppose, something related to that. So like habits, behaviors, structure. Like, what sort of structure do you have in place around your family, around work? What sort of habits have you already created? And how can we latch onto those habits with other healthy habits that are going to be required for you to move forwards? What do your behaviors look like? Your weekend behaviors, your evening behaviors, when you're in and around the office? What do those behaviors look like? And do we need to change any of them? The lifestyle around the training and nutrition is really, really important. That's part of your environment. That's part of your identity and who you are. So we need to be able to make sure that you have habits, behaviors, structure, identity, environment that's going to support you over the next 12 months, 18 months. So can you adhere? Are you coachable? Do you have the habits, behaviors, and structure, or do we need to do some work on that to help you do that? And then we get into what I would call like quality. So we're looking at, what is your training quality like? If I'm honest, the women that I work with when they first come in massively overestimate the quality of their training. Massively overestimate it. Just because you've been training for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, some of you, does not mean that you have a really high training experience and training age. Like 10 years of going to group classes, for example, or 10 years of just self-written programs, that's not 10 years of progressive stimulus or 10 years of true understanding of training outcomes. And, this is why I spend so much time, effort, money, travel, learning so much about training. You will know by now, if you spend any time following me, I spend a lot of time out in America. I travel around the world learning from experts in biomechanics, training, muscle growth, that kind of thing. So just because you've been training a long time doesn't necessarily mean you're training effectively for the result you want. So one of the biggest things we look at in those early stages in that priming phase is your training quality. Are we training to the quality, intensity that we require to get this really cool result? And if not, what work do we need to do on that in these initial phases? And then staying on the quality topic, so we've got adherence so far, we've got like habits and behaviors, we've got training quality, nutrition quality is then the next thing I'm looking at. So, okay, so you're adhering to your nutrition, but are you just hitting your protein and your macros and your calories, or is there some nutrition quality work that needs to go on here? For example, are you hitting your macros by eating at McDonald's every day? Listen, I've seen it, right? It's possible, and that's an extreme case, but are you just kind of patching things together and muddling through, or are you actually eating quality food sources that are going to give you the micronutrients you need? And again, this is something we need to look at in that early priming phase. So adherence, habits and behaviors, training quality, nutrition quality, and then the final thing, because this kind of underpins everything that somebody needs in the journey going forwards, is the sleep and recovery. So are you recovering enough? And honestly, not many women that I work with are in the early stages, mainly because they usually have families and they usually have either a business or like a high pressure career path that they've chosen. So they, on top of that, usually train too much, like 5, 6, 7 days a week. And sometimes what we have to do is pull things back, improve their sleep, improve their recovery, and they instantly get better results because of it. So again, in that early priming phase, we're looking at how well are you recovering from the work you're doing, and do we need to get you more recovery and less training, because that is a possibility as well. If training quality and nutrition quality go up, it may be that we need to do less of it to get you a result because you're recovering from it better. So again, that's what we're assessing in the priming phase. So phase 1 is for most women is going to be the priming phase. It's going to be figuring out whether you have the sleep and recovery, you've got the habits and the behaviors, you can adhere to the actual plan and the strategy, and then you've got the right nutrition quality and the right training quality. The chances are you don't have most of those things nailed down, but that's why we do the priming phase. We're going to work on those 5 things initially before we start to transition you into the next phase. Now, Talking of the next phase, usually this is where I will do my first fat loss phase with a client. Even if they're coming in not overly holding too much body fat, I'll still do a fat loss phase. So again, the time of this will depend. Usually it's going to be between 8 and 16 weeks initially. And that's just a realistic time frame for anybody to be losing a decent amount of body fat, right? A quick 4-week dip into a fat loss phase for most people isn't going to be enough. You're going to lose glycogen, you're going to lose a bit of water weight, you're not going to lose significant body fat. So you'll notice that we're only going into that dieting phase when I'm sure you're ready to diet, right? Because in that priming phase, it might be that you're not. It might be that you've been eating too low calories for so long that actually in that priming phase, we need to get your metabolism up. We need to get you fueled and fed better. And that's why you might have to be in that priming phase for the first 12 weeks or so before we get you into that initial dieting phase. So you only diet when you are ready to diet, right? Your training quality's up, your nutrition quality's on point. We then create a deficit from those things. We can start to, because your training quality is improved and your nutrition quality is improved and you've created that deficit, the chances are in that first fat loss phase for clients that I work with initially, you're going to build some muscle in that too. So in the initial weeks, you will lose body fat and build muscle at the same time because of the quality work that we've done. So we don't tend to stay in this initial fat loss phase too long. We want to get in and get out. You're going to build muscle, you're going to lose fat. It's going to be probably our most productive fat loss phase for that reason. But those muscle building effects in that second phase, the fat loss phase there, are going to drop off reasonably quickly, right? You can't be in a deficit for long before your muscle building potential is going to lower. So that's why I want to prime you first and make sure nutrition quality and training quality is on point. Because if I take you into that fat loss phase, that first fat loss phase, and it's not, all that's going to happen is you're not going to have much muscle building potential. So yes, you'll lose body fat, but we'll miss out on that short window that we have for you to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. If I keep you up at around maintenance in that priming phase, and then I pull your calories down, but your training quality goes up, you're going to be like a sponge for muscle growth. You're going to absorb all of that extra muscle. It's not quite how it works, but you know what I mean. You're going to absorb all that extra muscle really, really well. If you stay there too long though, and again, this is something that I see a mistake in clients, but also coaches, keeping a client in that fat loss phase too long, eventually you're going to end up running yourself into the ground. If you diet for too long, things are going to slow down. You're going to find that your hormones take a bit of a dip. You're going to find that you, even on low calories, you're just not losing weight anymore. So we don't want to stay there too long. And that's why a transformation is never going to be completed in that first fat loss phase. What we then need to do is reverse diet you out. And I've spoke about this. I was actually speaking to a coach over the weekend, an extremely probably one of the most well-respected and well-known coaches in the world at the minute. And I was speaking to him at the weekend about reverse dieting, and we were making some really interesting points. And we were talking about how biologically, physiologically, you don't need to reverse diet, right? This whole idea of, you've got to slowly build your metabolism up. You don't, right? When you finish that first fat loss phase, in theory, you can jump straight into your build phase, which is from phase 2 to phase 4 of my process. But I insert phase 3, and Cal and I were talking about this, and we were saying that ultimately, when you're working with females, it's so important that you remain bought into the process, you see the path forwards, and you don't get freaked out by any kind of big shifts in scale weight or anything like that. So when you come out of your dieting phase, the second phase, and you're going into the build phase, which is in theory the fourth phase, if we insert a reverse diet in the middle, what that will do is stop you having a big spike on the scales, slowly bring your food up so you don't feel stuffed, give your gut an opportunity to get used to the new amount of food that you're eating, and just gradually transition you from one to the other. And it may only be, with a reverse diet, I generally 3 weeks on average, I'd say, maybe 2 to 4 weeks, right? For some people, it's pretty quick, just 2 weeks. For some people, it'll take a little bit longer if they've been dieting for a while, but 2 to 4 weeks, and let's say on average 3 weeks. So it helps you manage the spikes, it helps you manage the weight fluctuations, helps you get used to the new volume of food you need to eat, the different shifts in meals. One tip I'll give you here, if you're going from a fat loss phase into a build, don't change your meals. Like, eat the same meals, but just add to it. So like if you normally have Greek yogurt and berries for your breakfast, keep having that, but just add some seeds, add some extra honey, add some extra berries, for example, maybe a dollop of peanut butter, something like that. So it's still the same thing as a whole. You're just adding to it. It's something I recommend for all my clients. Don't change your food structure just because you've got like 500 calories more to play with. Keep the same food structure. Just move your way through it by adding to that and gradually bringing your calories up that way. So we've got phase 1, which is a priming phase. We've got phase 2, which is the initial fat loss phase. At this point, a client is reasonably lean or in a good place, and then we'll go into the reverse diet. Now, the benefit of them going into a reverse diet from a lower body fat percentage is they are more susceptible to building muscle then from that point. So when they're lean or leaner or lower body fat, whatever wording and phrases you want to use, your insulin sensitivity is higher. So you're going to soak up the food. It's the best way I can explain it. Soak up that food way better and put it to good use within the muscle, right? So when we go into phase 4, the next phase, we've done priming, we've done fat loss, we've done a quick reverse diet as phase 3, and then we're into phase 4, the build. And this is where the most productive work happens. And this is the one phase that most of you will never have done properly and never have done well. But it's the one phase that will make the biggest difference between you getting a fantastic result that you see on the internet that you're imagining yourself getting and just spinning the wheels like you have been doing, right? The build is where it all happens. Mentally, the most challenging part. Mentally, the part that I probably have to spend most time with my clients on, actually talking to them, actually helping them through it. But the one that when we get to the end of it, they're way more grateful for. They see the changes, they see how it's massively benefited, and they actually feel amazing for doing it. So this is where you're going to build the tissue. Phase 4, the build. In terms of time frame, the minimum amount of time you should be doing a build for is 12 weeks. And even that, in my opinion, is too short. I did a build once for 2 years, right? And I've kept that muscle ever since. And that was the best decision I ever made. But my God, was I uncomfortable. I was massively in, like, when you looked at me, you'd be like, oh my God, he's out of shape. He looks like he trains, he goes to the gym, he's got some decent arms on him, but he doesn't look in great shape. That's not an extreme you have to go to, especially as a female client, right? We've learned a lot from that. I just ate way too much and it got massively out of control. This was a few years ago. But it shouldn't be like that, right? It's not supposed to be you gaining loads of fat. And this is where a lot of women kind of talk themselves out of the build. They're like, okay, I'm going to gain loads of fat. It's not worth it. I'd rather just stay skinny and lean. It doesn't work like that. It's just miserable, right? You staying in that, like eating 1,200 calories forever because that's the only way you stay small is not a sustainable approach, and mentally absolutely destroys you. So from a numbers game, I want to dress this up for you from a numbers point of view because I think this will help. In a build, honestly, you are looking for around 1 to 2% of body weight gain per month. So if I just use some rough numbers here, let's say you're a 60 kilogram individual, every month, in theory, you should be gaining around 0.6 to 1.2 kilos, right? 0.6 kilos is nothing. You will see fluctuation on the scales like this, like of 0.6 every day. For some of you, you'll go from 60 to 60.6 to 60 to 59.4 to 60 to 60.6. Like, that's just kind of a daily fluctuation. These are the sort of numbers we're talking about in a build phase, like 0.6 to 1.2 kilos a month. That's for a 60 kilo individual. Obviously, transfer that to your own body weight. I would say that, like, it depends on how tall you are, obviously, but if you're not overly lean at this point, if you're holding too much body fat still, it's probably not the time to do a build. I would do one when I generally like to do it with my clients when they are at a body fat that they're really happy with, because obviously if you are already still uncomfortable with your body fat levels, and even though it's only 0.6 to 1.2 kilos a month, you're still going to get uncomfortable pretty quickly because you're still seeing it go the wrong way, and you're still going to feel a little bit more fluffy, like you're holding a bit more water, that kind of thing. And if you get uncomfortable too quickly, you ain't going to stay in that build for like 6 months. right? Because you're going to be uncomfortable straight away. But if you're 60 kilos, again, let's just use that as an example, and you do 6 months of a build and you gain 0.6 roughly every month or so, for over that 6 month period, in theory, it's about 3.5 kilos, right? So you've gone from 60 to like 63.5. But if you've done it well, your training quality is good, your nutrition quality is good, your adherence is good, you've actually listened to me and worked with me as a coach and we've communicated well, that could be 3 kilos-ish of muscle, right? Not a lot of body fat at all. So the way you're going to look then at 63.5 kilos versus 60 kilos, you're probably going to look even leaner, even more toned, even more defined, because you've got all that extra muscle that you're showing off. So a build phase isn't supposed to be this scary thing that people think it is. The reason people get absolutely ruined by the idea of a build phase is because they don't do it properly, or they don't know how to do it properly. So you're looking for about 1 to 2% of body weight per month. You're not winging it. You're tracking your calories as you did with your fat loss phase. You're actually being precise with things, because then you're not going to mess it up. Then you're not going to end up gaining way too much body fat in the first month and suddenly needing to diet again. If you're constantly moving into a build for like 4 weeks, getting uncomfortable and dropping back into a dieting phase, you are not building any muscle. So that was phase 4, the build phase. Probably the hardest bit, probably the bit that nobody really does or does well, probably the bit where most people's journeys collapse when they're doing this on their own. So we've primed in phase 1, we've done your fat loss in phase 2, we've quickly reverse diet you out with a short reverse diet phase in phase 3, we've done a build in phase 4, that's the longest part of the process. And then in phase 5, I like to do what we call a transformation phase. So yes, this is where you've built the muscle, you're holding more muscle than you've ever held. You have way more potential to get into the shape of your life then at that point, because you actually have the muscle underneath. But we've had to work through all 4 of these steps to get to this point, right? You can't just fast forward your way to this point. If you could, I'd be a millionaire, right? Because everyone would want to work with me, because I've skipped out all this biological, all these different biological phases are required, and just giving you the cheat code to having all the muscle you need. And all you need is a quick, fat loss phase, and you're going to be done, right? You can't skip these phases. So anyone who's getting that idea off the back of this podcast, drop it. It's not going to happen, right? You've got to do this in the correct order with the right precision. So phase 5, that is the transformation phase. This is where we put you back into your second deficit. So we pull your calories back down again, but obviously at this point, you've got way more muscle. We might not have to go as low with your calories. You may not need to lose as much body fat, because again, you're showing more muscle mass anyway, so you're going to look better anyway. Your nutrition at this point, maybe you're 12 months into your journey here. So, your nutrition's a lot better. Your training's so much more better, way more advanced. You're sleeping better. We've got all your supplementation aligned. We've had 12 months of learning and opportunity to progress here. So you're going into this dieting phase, this / transformation phase, in a completely different position than where you entered that first one. More muscle and more susceptible to fat loss because of that. So I don't think I need to even explain this phase that much. It's pretty straightforward, because by the time you get to stage 5 or phase 5, you're a completely different person than you were in phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And your body's completely different. So this is now your opportunity to reveal all of that work you've done, right? And actually then sustain it, which I suppose I'll move on from phase 5, because that is the unveiling. I mean, if you want a time frame, because most people do, usually phase 5 is going to be anything from 8 weeks to 18 weeks. It's going to depend where your starting point is. I'd say 18 weeks is probably a bit of an overestimate. Probably, I'd say on average for most clients, we do it in around 8 to 12 weeks. But it depends on how quickly and how aggressive you're going to be with it. But you could get it done quicker or slower. But yeah, if you pick 12 weeks as a rough average, then that's probably about right. The phase that I wasn't really going to count, there is a phase 6, I suppose. Now it's 5 phases to get you to the result that you want. I generally then tend to do a phase 6 with clients, and that's maintenance / performance. So this is the bit again that most people skip, because they've achieved the result, they've got the outcome. And that could be just you feel amazing and confident and you're in a bikini on holiday for the first time in ages. One of my clients actually sent me a picture of them on holiday this week, and it was them wearing a dress that they would never have worn before we worked together. And actually, we've just done a build together, and she worked with a coach previously, and she just dieted and dieted and dieted. It got stuck in the 1200 calorie kind of zone. So we spent a lot of time doing a build, and to see her on holiday, like she's in a build now on holiday. She's like, I feel amazing in this dress and I could never wear it before. Just shows you like what a difference it makes going through a proper build phase, because she was like, the definition in my back, I've just never seen this before. I feel amazing in this dress. It just shows you that it's not always about like dieting for a holiday. Actually doing a build for your holiday might be useful. But anyway, if we just quickly cover phase 6, this is like the maintenance of performance. So after you've done a transformation, what next? Like, how are you maintaining that? And most people skip this, but this is where we need to move the goalposts. Focus on performance, focus on strength, focus on doing your pull-ups. How capable are you? How much you can deadlift? You need to have something that you're now aiming for. What is the next step for you? Where are you going now? Where are you going next? If you don't have that and you're just like, oh, I'm done, I'm finished, you are very quickly going to slip backwards. So every single client, when I'm going for a client journey with them, we are always looking at, okay, cool, you've completed the transformation. What is next for you in terms of maintenance, performance, progression in some way? So don't skip it. So just to recap this for you. Phase 1, priming phase. Phase 2, dieting phase. Phase 3, reverse diet. Phase 4, the build, the most important one. Phase 5, the unveiling, the transformation phase. And then ultimately a bit of a bonus phase is phase 6, where you go into maintenance and performance and focus on something that's not aesthetics or fat loss or something like that. So look, hopefully that was useful. Hopefully that's helps you to understand how I shape the transformations that I run with my clients, why I get the results I get, and maybe some gaps for you as to where you're missing out on those results right now. If you have any questions, as always, just drop me a comment below and I'll come back to you. And like I said, if you do want to work through this journey with me, if you want to understand how to go through a real transformation like this with a high-level coach, my link to work with me will be in the comments. You can find me there and everything I do. So just click that and I'll see you on the other side of it. And as always, leave me that 5-star review. I'll see you on the next one.